I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Vantage from Stonemaier Games. Vantage is a 1 to 6 player cooperative exploration game, although I do have issues with that 1 to 6. We'll come back to that later in this review. But it's a 1 to 6 player cooperative game which players are working usually separately, but with a cooperative sense of the goals they are trying to achieve as they attempt to accomplish their missions and or destinies before running out of resources. The various players are going to be crash landing on the planet. They're going to end up in vastly different zones. Statistically speaking, they'll end up in different zones, and from there they'll be trying to make their way into the world, utilizing their actions in order to explore and accomplish their missions. For example, right here with this character in this solo game over here, and I should note I have a playthrough coming up on the channel soon that you can check out if you want to watch me try to confront and explore this mission. But this mission is collect a menagerie of animals. You have to have a total of 1 loyal animal plus 1 per player in order to go ahead and accomplish this mission. That's a mission that we have to accomplish, getting our hands on loyal animal friends. How is that going to play out? Well, you're going to have to explore the world to see how that plays out. There's also destinies in the game, because you can also win through accomplishing your destiny, although destinies have to be unlocked throughout the course of playing the game. And then from there, you can also lose the game. You can lose the game by running out of resources. You can also lose the game by running out of time, literal time. You can set a 2-hour block of time or a 3-hour block of time and say you're going to play for that longer, and then either win or just not accomplish your goals. You can also accomplish your mission and your destiny. There's basically a bunch of ways to win or lose the game, but you are going to be exploring the entire time while managing your resources. A basic turn in Vantage consists of trying to take an action. You're going to look on the card you're on, or alternatively possibly on any other cards in play. For example, we have our mission that has a few actions over here. We have our starting character, they have a few actions over there. You're going to find that card number and choose the action. For example, right now we have an angular device hovers among the floating stones. Because we have an orange spot over here, we're going to choose the orange activate action. We're going to gather the orange book over here and choose this action, the activate action on this card. Because you can only choose 1 action per card. Once you choose an action, you're locked. You can't go back and choose another card unless the game lets you. Sometimes it does. So over here we have an angular device. We've chosen to activate it. We're going to do a 3-cost action to activate the device. That means we're going to take 3 dice from our pool of challenge dice over here. These dice have to be gone through to be used and possibly slotted on cards, which again, you won't start with a lot, but you'll gather more as you go. And then let's go ahead and play this out and see how this goes. We rolled these 3 dice, which is actually a great example of the 3 types of results you can get. This result is excellent. That's the best result. Nothing bad happens. This result represents some degree of wasted expenditure, but again, nothing bad happens, but this returns the pool, which is going to slow down the challenge dice pool refreshing. And this die over here would cause us to lose 1 life. But this is where you can slot dice onto your character or on the various gear you have as you play through the game. In this case, because we took an orange action, we can slot this over here and not take the result, and instead we're actually going to gain a boost, which is helpful on that card. That's the way you're going to be taking actions in Vantage. You are rolling dice. Depending on the dice results, you are trying to either slot them onto cards you have, or alternatively hoping for the better results where nothing bad happens, or alternatively you do run the risk of running out of morale, time, and health, and then ticking those down hoping you don't hit 0. Once you've done the action, because actions do generally always succeed, the question is what the cost of the success is. We activate the device. A beam of bright light bursts from the top of the runecaster. Nothing happens for a few minutes, then a sentient appears. I saw your signal. How can I help you, they ask. Gain sentient 1335 with a when placed benefit of 1 boost. We're going to go ahead and gather a card. We have a whole bunch of cards, locations and actions and items and characters, tons of things. We're going to gather a card, and then from there we can continue to explore this world. We can go to a new location on this board. We can take a look at these options, traveling to a new location, or looking at the star and trying to travel to something a little bit out of reach, which will represent a harder challenge, but possibly getting us to other places faster in the game. That's the core idea. You are basically exploring this world. You are engaging with a host of cards, like 700 location cards, something like that, plus another 700 or 800 cards of various items, actions, gear, pets, sentience, all these different kinds of things, all while trying to accomplish your missions. This is, at its core, a game of exploration. And to be clear, because there are other exploratory games out there, when you travel from one card to another, you simply replace that card. You're going to have a new card, you simply go from one location to a new location, replacing the card entirely. Yes, you can go back by going through the same route, but you aren't building out a tableau tableau on your board. You are simply moving around from location to location. You're only ever in one location at a time. Rinse and repeat the process until you win. If you are playing with other players, you're both going to be in your own spots. It's possible for you to converge in this world. You are on a shared planet after all, but depending on where you fell down from your spaceship, it will depend how hard it is to actually sync up and group up versus you just going ahead and trying to resolve your actions separately while playing together. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into my review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking. And there is a bunch of things over here that are very enjoyable as you play through Vantage. The wildly different starting locations means that when you dive into this world, because it is a shared universe, it means it's something like, I haven't done the exact math, but I feel like there's around 100 to 150 different starting locations in the game, which means every time you dive into it, aside from the fact that you can go wandering off in different locations entirely, you are starting off in very different locations, again, statistically speaking, as you play. But then more importantly, the wildly different experiences you're going to have as you play is where Vantage shines. Not just in where you're exploring what you do, but again, these 700 cards, each with a unique action, gives you whatever that math is, 700 times 6, 4,200 different things you can be doing in the game. And yes, it's possible that especially amongst multiple plays, you will eventually hit the same things again and again, but at least at first, you'll be wandering in a completely fresh world where everything is new to you, and you're making these choices based off of a combination of your mission, your destiny if you know it, and then trying to intuit what is most likely to get you where you're going. In this case, I'm trying to get animals. How can I get my hands on those animals? What actions can I take? Where can I explore? Which of these different options are most likely to get me what I want? You're going to be reading through a ton of books with a ton of narrative options. Narrative that does have a story of your explorations, but isn't like a super long narrative. This isn't a ton of reading. There's just a lot of small reading as you make various choices. You wander into a bar, you encounter a patron, you get that cloak, you find that weapon. Small little snippets of text that keep you moving along while giving you a degree of narrative and exploration as you go through this wildly different experience. Again, because you are going to have different choices you are making, and just as importantly, different gear that's going to change the way you engage with this game. As you build up your character, your tableau is going to start off with a single character, but you're going to start gathering various items, various cards that go around your character, all giving you various tools that will all drastically change the way you engage with Vantage, because if you are better at one thing or another, building up your developed asymmetry in this game is going to be a big part of it. And not in competition with other players, this is cooperative after all, but just knowing that you're really good at fighting, or you're really good at negotiating, or maybe you're good at diving and negotiating. There's any number of combinations of ways you can go through it, but the ultimate result is that you're going to be building up this tableau, getting stronger at different things, and allowing you to pursue this game in its own way. And even those choices are going to be interesting. Do you take that action? Maybe you like fighting in games, and so maybe when you have a choice to duel someone or brawl someone, you go ahead and want that. But what if that's not what you're good at? What if you're good at crafting and you have to make a choice between, do I do the thing that feels more intuitive based on the situation, based on the way I would handle it, or do I do what's most likely to make me survive? Those choices are going to be a big part of you playing Vantage. And finding items, you start off very, very unable to do a lot in this game. You will start off the game by watching your resources tick down to 0 and being unable to do a ton about it because the mitigation just isn't there yet. But then you get to this point where you have that incredibly cool spear, that incredibly cool suit of whatever it is you have, different things that will just make you feel more powerful while giving you tools. And so it is incredibly satisfying to watch that progression happen as you play through it. The exploration as well. You are exploring and learning this world. Your first gameplay of Vantage is going to be very, very blind. You're going to have a goal and you're going to have no idea how to accomplish that goal. As you play the game more, you'll still have no idea how to accomplish that goal, but slightly less of a no idea. You'll have that knowledge of, okay, great, well, I'm trying to get animals this time, and I don't know exactly where to go, but I do at least understand the structure of the game. I do understand that the very process of exploring this world, exploring this universe, is going to move me closer to getting my hands on different things. And it's up to me to try to find out how can I work my way closer to those things versus other things. I'm trying to be a little shy of the different types of stuff you can have. Obviously, there's going to be animals you can find, but there's other things as well. Lots of small little areas of things you can collect, different types of experiences you can have, and you will inherently have those as you play, and sometimes they are helping you towards your mission. Other times they aren't. It depends on which mission you have, but again, you have that choice and that agency to try to work your way slightly closer to the things that make sense. Even something as simple as a mission or a destiny that has you trying to engage with multiple duels, well, that's going to be a little bit more obvious as you look at cards that have you engaging in fighting. You'll need to find other people. You'll need to make that choice to fight them. So it can be very it's very open as you explore, but also it's a little vague while managing to give you just enough room to slowly work your way towards those victories. And the nice thing about the game is there are multiple ways to win. And so your destiny, a good example is every game has a destiny of trying to, the first time a player has a full grid, you gain a destiny once you fully surround your character. So if you just survive in Vantage long enough, you will get to a point where you can just trigger the end game just through having survived long enough, regardless of your particular mission. Granted, it's not quite as satisfying. There's something very satisfying about actually accomplishing your specific mission you started the game with, but you do always have that option of being able to continue to play. And also, the way that's structured, you could just walk away at any point in that specific destiny. And so you have a lot of flexibility as far as how you approach this as you try to explore, learn, and accomplish your goals. Additionally, I will say it has very strong solo play to its credit. The solo experience I think is excellent, as is the two-player experience, and with that, that's a good time to move directly into the things I don't like, because I do not think this is a 3 to 6 player game. Vantage is touted as a 1 to 6 player experience, and every additional player simply adds downtime without making the game better. Because you're all doing your own things. You barely are exploring or interacting with each other as you play through it. It is possible, but even if you do sync up, there's not a lot of motive to stay together in the game, and so you're kind of just playing your own separate experiences, but not where you can at least play it simultaneously. So every additional player slows down the game without even making the game better. Usually when a game has variable player counts, sometimes you're like, oh, well, a 2-player game is faster, but I really like the interactivity that a 3rd player adds. That's not true in Vantage. The only difference between 1 and 2 player is a 2-player game at least has you being able to read my stuff to me so I can make choices without seeing all the options in front of me. So that does add something nice. And honestly, at 2 players, there's a little bit of a time to be able to appreciate not just the way I'm building out my character, but look at that cool animal you got and how it's going to help you. The more players you add, the less you're going to benefit from being able to fully focus and appreciate what others are doing, and there is no in-game benefit once you have somebody else able to read the text for you. So 3 to 6 players is just a way to slow down the game without in any way giving you a collaborative experience. I would make the slight argument that maybe 3 players allows it to feel less like 2 people and more like a group game night. And that's just the nature of having a 3rd person there, not the nature of having a 3rd person at this game. And so I do not think this is a 3 to 6 player game. I think if you get your hands on Vantage, you should be playing it as a 1 or 2 player experience. There will always be those who do appreciate it at higher player counts, but I think the vast majority will not. I think the vast majority will be disappointed if you are getting at this thinking it is a larger player count game. Outside of that, as far as things in the experience that pull it back, aside from the labeling of a 3 to 6 player experience, or 1 to 6 player, but again, I'm taking issue with the 3 to 6. First of all, hitting the same things again isn't really satisfying, it's more frustrating. And you're like, oh my gosh, but Alex, there's 6 things you can do on this card, I want to explore all of them. Well, yes, in theory, but the first problem is, if from game to game, you're usually not going to remember what you do. My own personal house rule, not that it's come up a ton yet, I've already across my multiple plays been able to experience the same locations sometimes multiple times, but not a ton. This is a large world, and I think it will take you time to see it. My own personal house rule is that if I forget if I go back to this card and I'm like, I can't remember if I did activate or focus, and you might be like, well, that's obvious, but the problem is activate is on other cards too, focus is on other cards too, and so if I don't remember which one I did, if I read it up and I'm like, oh, I did that one last time, I usually have allowed myself to take back those actions those few times it happens, because the only thing deflating, like these cards, you don't experience them that often. Again, the more you play, the more repeat knowledge you'll have, and the more you'll come back to things again and again. But at least at first, in your first 5, 10 games, you won't experience a ton of overlap. And so for me, it's kind of deflating to actually be at a location I visited and then do the exact same thing I did last time and forget that that was the outcome. And I'm like, oh, you duel someone and take 2 damage. And you're like, well, that wasn't what I actually wanted to do. So I allow take-backs in those moments. Again, they're not that common at the beginning, but they will become more frequent the more you play the game. And I don't find, to me, almost the part of the charm advantage is making those decisions without knowing things, and having that knowledge takes away from the experience. To me, Vantage is very much a game about exploring and learning. It's not a game about remembering and getting better. It's about that sense of exploration. It's about look at how these things come together. Don't get me wrong, there will be that one time when you particularly want that one weapon you got last time that was really helpful, and you find yourself in the same area and you're trying to remember if you negotiated with the merchant or if you broke down the door and took down the chest. There will be times where you want something specific, but for the most part, to me, Vantage shines in the sense of the world that it provides, that sense of exploration that it gives. And the more you learn that world, the more you interact with that world and know that world, the more Vantage starts to fall back on the mechanics of the game. And I think mechanically speaking, Vantage is a lighter experience that is not super deep. Don't get me wrong, it's fun to roll dice. It's fun to roll a handful of dice and have them all come up, you know, a bunch of well, that wasn't the point. That didn't go the way I wanted to, but theoretically rolling a handful of dice and having that comes up, that's incredibly satisfying. But it's not mechanically deep. The opportunity to slot dice that didn't go in your favor in order to mitigate that is satisfying to watch a handful of 6 dice roll and nothing bad happens to you. But mechanically speaking, Vantage is on the lighter side, and so as soon as you strip away those layers of exploration, you are left with a game that is not mechanically satisfying relative to other games out there. Because I'm not saying it's not mechanically satisfying at all. It is. There's a fun little puzzle of building up your character and watching that tableau develop, but it's not a super deep experience as far as the strategic choices you are making, which is why for me, this is not a game about learning the world you are in and then trying to use that for your next play. I mean, there's a small degree of learning the construct of the world you're in, but individual locations or items aren't where the game shines. It is purely about the exploration where Vantage shines, and the more you play that game, the less exploration you're going to have and the more repeated knowledge you're going to be engaging with. Lastly, as far as complaints, and this is a small nitpick one, I will say there are definitely times where you have an action that costs 6 dice or whatnot, and doesn't feel like what you get out of it is worth 6 dice. Generally in the game, there's going to be a range of like action costs. I think the range I've seen is like 1 to 6. I don't think I've seen anything higher than 6, although I'm sure it does exist somewhere. But for me, well, there's also X where you choose a number of dice, and that could be whatever number you want. But nonetheless, as far as the action cost, usually I think things are in a decent ratio. That thing that costs 1 is not as good as the thing that gets you 3, or that costs 3. But I do find there are times where I've spent 5 or 6 dice on an action, and the action doesn't feel like it's that good, and that when those things happen, that's a little bit annoying to happen, but that's a small nitpick amongst all the other things. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, the complete randomness of what you end up engaging with versus your missions. Again, like you could have a mission of collect a menagerie of animals, and then if you don't engage with the animals in the game, you might have a whole host of other things you've done and have been able to do, but you might just not be able to engage with what you have been trying to do in your mission. And for me, for the most part, I haven't had that issue. For the most part, I've been able to experience and engage with at least some degree of what I'm trying to do, but sometimes you'll have a game where you just don't encounter the thing you're trying to encounter. You still have ways of winning the game, especially through your destiny, but nonetheless, that could be a slightly anticlimactic experience. I'll also say the skill token system, these tokens where you get these tokens for things, you usually start the game with a few of them, and you get a few more here and there, but honestly, the ratio to which you get them versus you use them, I find they almost feel like an afterthought. It feels like a big mechanic in the game of managing your skill tokens, but in practice, they don't come into play as often as I would think, and so that might be slightly frustrating to have this whole thing that you want to engage with but don't. But outside of that, as far as final thoughts go on Vantage, I've enjoyed my plays of Vantage. I like the exploration more so than anything else, and I've had a lot of fun watching my characters develop as I try to accomplish my mission. It simultaneously feels like a very cohesive experience, but also a very fractured experience. And this I touched upon a little bit in things I talked about what I like and don't like and what I can see others not liking. The cohesiveness is this world that you are in. There is a world here. There's a lot to explore, and there can be incredibly satisfying moments. We haven't even talked about the Book of Vantages or the Book of Secrets that are going to give you extra ways to interact. You have there's times where you have literal maps to engage with to find the things you need. That Book of Vantages is a big part of it, but you have to actually get your hands on those moments where you can get your hands on a treasure map and reference that treasure map to be able to find those animals that you need. There's a big cohesive world going on here, an impressive world that is a lot of fun to explore. But the fractured part of that experience comes to the fact that it is all kind of random. You're just wandering around trying to do things, and those things that you do might work out, they might not. But as long as you're there for that sense of the exploration, I think you'll have fun with Vantage. But I think the more that you explore Vantage, I think the less satisfying it gets. To me, this is a game about the exploration, about finding those cool cars that you didn't know existed. Every time I've played, there have been new pieces of gear and equipment and new experiences I've had that have been incredibly satisfying to watch my character develop and be able to overcome, to go from that starting line of watching all your resources tick away to be able to get to the end game and watching everything start to be able to be managed and mitigated. That can be incredibly satisfying. I think Vantage is a game, though, that does have a limited amount of plays before that will wear off, because the experience is primarily driven by the charm of the exploration, and not by the mechanics that lie underneath that. And so for me, I'm going to give Vantage a 3.5 out of 5. I've enjoyed my plays of it, and I anticipate playing it more before I move on from it, but I also anticipate moving on from it. I think this is a game that is definitely worth trying, although I would hesitate before recommending buying it, because again, for me, if the game shines the most as you're exploring it, and less so the more you play it, That to me is the great kind of game to play your friend's copy, to play at a convention, to play at a game cafe, but it's a very different story to sit there and say, get this game and play it 15 times. I think the more you play it, the more some of that will wear off. If you're looking for other game recommendations, definitely check out 7th Continent for another game that gives you a sense of a puzzle to explore while also leaving it kind of up to you as the player to figure out what that even means to explore it. And if you're looking for another game that has you working in a kind of a general world state in which you're going to engage with that world state for a limited little window and then come back in and dive into it again with a limited window, check out Lands of Galzir. It's another game. Both Lands of Galzir and Vantage are both similar in the sense that they operate in a very shared universe that things keep happening in, but each game session stands on its own. This is not a campaign game. This is a game about exploring, trying to accomplish your goal, and then coming back again and doing the exact same thing until you eventually lose interest. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.